Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Good morning and welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists Podcast with me, Jackson White.
And me, Gavin Cook.
And today we've got a martial artist from the US, from Colorado. She's a columnist in the Taekwondo Times. She's a columnist in Century Martial Arts and founder and chief instructor of Inner City Martial Arts. It's Karen Eden Herdman. Welcome, Karen.
Hey, how's things going across the pond over there?
Cold.
Yeah.
It's probably the best way to describe it. Cold and COVID-y.
Yeah, I know. Cold and COVID, isn't that the truth? It's sad out there right now. Yeah, we got our own cold and COVID issues over here.
Yeah. Hopefully, have you got any snow over there yet?
Knew where I'm at, but I'm in Colorado, so you know that's not the whole. I can't speak for everybody else, but yeah, we got a winter storm warning where I'm at.
Brilliant. Well, it's great to have you on the show today, Karen. I'm just going to fire off with the first question, obviously, just so our audience can understand a little bit about you. So, if you could just maybe, start right at the beginning, really, and tell us a little bit about your childhood and how you first got into martial arts.
Well, let's see here. How much time did you say we had?
as long as you need. As long as you need.
You know what? If you want to start with my martial arts, I started. Actually, I'm testing for my 7th degree in Tung Soo Do in about less than 2 weeks in Greenville, South Carolina, and that's about 30 years in the making. So I've been teaching and training for 30 years. Good old-fashioned hand-to-hand combat, military base, which is what traditional Tung Soo Do is. It's a Korean style.
Sure.
Very similar to Taekwondo, but it's not an Olympic sport. It's actually military hand-to-hand combat. That would make me a Grand Master once I get my 7th degree black belt, God willing. And honestly, I can tell you, and I'm not bragging, I humbly tell you, I'm one of very few women I know of in the world that have the rank of Grand Master in Tung Soo Do. It takes a long time. It takes a very long time.
A lot of dedication, a lot of time, a lot of grit, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of focus and a lot of determination through good and bad and all the things life will offer a young girl to a woman my age. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen, especially to women with childbearing and all, career moves. And, you got to make up your mind. You're going to stick with it no matter what. And I think that's what separates people who continue to go on to the rank of master and grandmaster or even black belt for the 4 years typically that it takes in most art forms is no matter what happens, you're going to find a way to train or you're going to find a way to continue teaching your school when you're higher ranked. I mean, it's a matter of focus and dedication. Absolutely.
And I think more so, sorry, Jackson, I was going to say more so now than ever with obviously the COVID problems. I'm just interested. So when you do your 7th degree, are you guys allowed to do any sparring over there, or is there sort of it, or is it all social distance still?
No, well, it depends. It's statutory. It just depends. Colorado is tough right now. They don't want more than 10 people meeting at any given time, and you're 6 feet apart. I mean, there's a lot of protocol where I live. Greenville, South Carolina, the show is going on, and it's through the Sport Karate Museum under Professor Gary Lee. I'm not familiar with all their protocol, but I do know what the hotel has said about wearing a mask and social distancing, but they're going to continue to go on with the programming.
Okay. That's interesting because we're just going through some black belt testing. Our association is doing some black belt testing at the moment, and obviously they've had to totally change the whole setup. There's no sparring, things like your set sparring, your 1-step and your 2-step sparring, and your patterns and your katas obviously all going to be changed and obviously different. The sparring side is going to be shadow sparring only. So it's a shame, really. It's a shame for these youngsters that have, especially the ones that love the sparring element.
Yeah, well, I don't have to spar at my rank. Once you
Okay.
get the rank of master, and in Tang Soo Do, that's fourth Dan, which is about 12 years of teaching and training, you don't have to perform. I performed. I've performed pretty much doing something, and this time I'm also going to be performing uh, a form called Osip Sabo, which is a Korean a Tang Soo Do form, and it does have 77 moves in it. So I'm going to be
Oh.
judged by, I obviously will be judged by those higher ranked than myself, 8th through 10th Dans, or real ones, not the fake ones. These are old men. Listen, if you're that high ranked and you're not old, you did something wrong, okay? So these are going to be a bunch of old G's up there testing me. And I got to make sure everything is going to be in order at my rank. I mean, they're going to be very picky with me, and rightfully so. But yeah, that's what I've got on my agenda coming up in a few days.
Okay, that sounds cool. Just take us back at just one stage, or probably maybe 2 or 3 stages in your martial arts career. How did you actually get into martial arts, Karen?
You know, people ask me that, and I got to tell you, it's a rather deflated answer. Um, I've always had a love for it. I think it's in my blood lineage because I am I am what they call Seiwai Genji on my mom's side, which is a samurai warriorship class on both levels of my grandparents. Both of my mother's parents are samurai warrior class, and you know that went on obviously through the whole Edo period and all that. But I'm the only martial artist I know in my family since the 1500s.
Right.
So I don't know if I got something in my blood, but from day one, I always had a desire to train and always had a love for it. The problem was I grew up in a very less fortunate situation. I was a very poor kid, and I came from a broken family, and we didn't have money. I mean, sometimes you had $5 extra, you know, that would be just a pot of gold, you know, growing up for food and stuff. And I just couldn't afford to train. So as soon as I was a girl of age that I could work as a very young girl, that's the first thing I did was sign up for lessons. And I just, I never looked back. I mean, it's just been a major part of my life.
Can you remember that
Sure.
that first time that you walked into your first dojang? Can you remember I know certainly for me, I can remember how it smelt. I can remember the blood on the door handle when I walked in. It was a proper spit and sawdust place, wasn't it, Jackson, when we first started?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, I can remember my first instructor was Mr. Joseph Bruno, and he is an instructor under C.S. Kim out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I walked in, and you know, I didn't know anything right off the street. And yeah, I absolutely remember it was a brand new, we call them dojangs in Korean art.
Yeah.
It was a brand new dojang. I could smell the paint. You're right. I mean, I was one of 4 students. It was a brand new school. And although all those 4 students, obviously, and probably the next 1,000 students he's had, I don't think there's anybody that has gone on like I have, not to the point that I have. So, you know, I look back and I owe him a lot of gratitude. And I called him the other day, and I call him from time to time just to pay my respects.
It's funny, though, isn't it? As you get older, I mean, like I say, myself and Jackson, we've been both in the arts for sort of 40 odd years, much as yourself, really. And over time, so many people come and go, don't they? And, you know, you think all that time you've been training, you know, the amount of students that's come, and some will get to their yellow belt, some will get to their green belt, some will get to their black belt, and then they leave. And there's so few people that continue with that journey all the way, certainly to the sort of level that you've got to.
Absolutely. And it goes back to what I said originally. You know, life kicks in for everybody, especially if you start as young as I did. You know, you're going to go through a gamut of stuff, and you're just going to have to make up your mind if you want it to work. You have to find a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm, most definitely. So you mentioned Tang Soo Do. Was that your first martial art, Karen, or was it a martial arts prior to that?
That's my first and only. I walked in and I stuck with it. That's what I know. You know, that's, I guess I should say, the only hard form I know. I also teach Pilates, and I teach a little bit of Tai Chi, and I teach yoga, just to complement at my age now as I get older, but you know, something to complement the hard style to give my body a break. But
sure,
outside of that, as far as traditional martial arts goes, that's all I've ever done, and that's all I know.
Did you ever get into the competition side, Karen? In
Oh
those
yeah. Oh yeah, I competed all over the country, and I was a 2-time world competitor. So yeah, I definitely. I did do the circuit. I don't do it now, but when I was younger, mainly in my 20s, I did. I traveled all over the country to do that. Absolutely.
And what was your sort of preferred discipline? Did you enjoy doing the patterns, or were you more of a aspiring competitor?
I did them both. Honestly, I think I did better in sparring. I was a really tough fighter. They called me Scrappy because, I get in there and I was just tough. And sometimes I took some pretty hard blows, and, I just wouldn't quit. I just had this thing about me where I would go back in there. And sometimes my moves weren't the prettiest, but I still got it done. And I'd say of all my successes, I was probably more successful in sparring than I was in kata, poomsae, or forms, or whatever you call it. Yeah, definitely in fighting.
Yeah, good. So when you were competing, were you competing internationally? Were you going overseas to compete?
Well, I competed in the international tournaments that came to my country. So I didn't go overseas, but when they would hold them, every few years they rotate, what country they're going to do it in. So when they did it in America, that's when I would compete in the world championships.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds really interesting. I mean, Gavin and I, that's really I say is our forte. It was our forte. We're a bit too old to compete now. Maybe in the veterans every now and then. And I know, having the ability to match yourself up against other international fighters, even though we're doing the same art, they still have different styles. For us, that was a real great challenge, and something that we thoroughly enjoyed. So
yeah,
I can
absolutely
understand that. Okay, so how old were you when you received your first degree black belt then, Karen?
Oh, let's see. I had to be somewhere in my 20s. So without dating myself, which if you make me tell my age there, Gavin, I'm actually going to lie to you. So don't ask me.
Oh, we never ask ladies how old they are.
Let's just say I was young. I was probably in my late teens to 20s was when I started. So yeah, I was pretty young, somewhere in my 20s.
Okay, that's when you got your first dan.
Yeah, that's when I started training, and 4 years later became a black belt. That's correct.
Okay, so it took you 4 years to get from white belt all the way through to your first dan.
Yeah, yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Can you remember that grading? Was it pretty tough?
What, my first test to yellow belt?
No, to your first dan.
Yeah, I do. I actually remember my first test to yellow belt too. That was probably the happiest test of my life. I mean, I was so once I got to yellow belt and I looked in the mirror and I saw that colored belt, I knew I was going to go all the way. I mean, it just thrilled me just to think that I could get through that test. Black belt was hard. A traditional Tang Soo Do black belt is hard. A test is hard. It takes all day. You can't eat. I mean, because you can't. They don't say don't eat, but heck, you can't. I mean, it's a crowded room with a couple hundred people. It's hot, it's sweaty, and people are passing out, and people are drawing blood, and it's philosophical testing. It's not just physical testing. They're mean to you. They're not nice. They're very strict. I remember that day very well. It was very exhausting. First degree black belt was harder than any other test I've ever done, and I'm going on my 7th. So just to give you an idea, that was a hard test.
And it's one of those grades, isn't it? I know. I tell my students, I've just got a handful of students that are about to do their first dan in a couple of weeks' time, and again, traditionally it takes sort of 4 to 5 years. Certainly in my club, to get to black belt. I don't believe any time under 4 years is appropriate, to be quite honest, to get a black belt. But I say to them, I say, look, you'll remember this testing, you'll remember this grading, and you'll remember that feeling to wear that black belt for the first time. And it's a feeling, that no one can ever take that away from you. That how proud you are. I don't care. Even passing your driving test is great, but in my opinion, it's still not as good as getting your black belt.
Oh no, that right there is life changing. I mean, it's the first step to something very life changing. You know, obviously the belt color has changed when you get your black belt. You went from brown or red to black. It's a piece of material that's a different color.
Yeah.
And then you've got to train after you get that belt to officially become and feel like a black belt. It takes time. You got to grow into that rank. It's not like you just get it, you know, you grow into it.
Yeah. And it's something that,
definitely.
Sorry, Jackson.
So I was saying most definitely. So we talked to a lot of martial artists we have spoken to a lot of martial artists over the last 18 months, and everybody that we've spoke to at some stage, given the few exceptions, have said that they found certain times in their martial arts grade, certainly getting to their black belt, at least one bout extremely difficult, or some challenges within that training syllabus to get to those black belts. Did you have any areas within the color belt syllabus that you found particularly difficult, or any challenges that you had to work extra hard to overcome, Karen?
Oh, heck yeah. I still do. I mean, oh yeah. You know, it never came easy for me. I'm not a natural athlete. I had to work very hard to get anything that I got in martial arts. I mean, you know, just and even today, it's just nonstop training. This stuff, you know, it doesn't come easy for me. I know I have students where stuff comes so easy for them. They're just naturally athletic. I am not one of those people. I struggled through everything. And the fact that I didn't quit is why I'm where I'm at today. But especially difficult for me coming up the ranks, like most women who are girly girl women, were the flying sidekicks. You know, one flying sidekick on a bag is fine, but when you have 2 or 3 people bent over and your requirement is to break a board over jumping over 2 or 3 people, you know, that becomes very tough for a lot of girls. You know, just because of your body structure, you're not thin in the hips when you're a woman. Your body is different, and you know you're not as airborne. I mean, you can be if you're thin hipped, but most women who are women, like built like girly girls, they're not real airborne with a lot of those fly kicks. And that was a struggle for me. I mean, I had to learn to do it, and I did it to the best of my ability. And I still apologize. And if you're listening, I want to apologize for the poor 3 people that were on the floor when I had to do that kick. But you know what? I mean, I did the best that I could, and it was enough to get me through. But yeah, flying kicks, I can teach them. And I've got students who can be airborne for it seems like 10 minutes up there. But for me, I can't. It's still difficult for me, like many women, to do the fly kicks.
Yeah, so make sure you get that trailing leg up, especially if you're if they're crouched over, right?
Exactly. Yeah, poor guys.
Yeah. Throughout your training syllabus, have you ever not been successful in a grading?
I know when I was a red belt, what we call a Chodan candidate, which means you're a candidate to be a black belt because you're that close. So when I was, I guess it would be a third GUP, which means I just got my red belt. And then you go through a series of 2 years where you train really hard to test for your black belt. The first time I was at that red belt rank, I didn't fail or anything, but got a serious talking to by the masters who said, listen, you're going to have to step up your game. You know what? You're doing it like a colored belt, a GUP belt. You're not doing it like a black belt, and you need to get your head in the game. And they had that talk with me, and that changed me because I realized that there's a difference between going through the motions and doing it with your soul. I learned that difference. And so, yeah, that's the one thing I could tell you about that. You know, outside of that, no problems.
Just on that then, Karen, can you remember what they said to you, sort of, because I know, you know, I think we've all had defining moments in our martial arts career where you've gone from being, I know Jackson likes to call it the awakening, when you all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's like, actually, you know what, I'm pretty good at this, or, you know, something triggers inside you that makes you really have that grit and determination to do it. I know for me, it was I failed my black stripe grading. And that was, I suppose, one of the defining moments for me, you know, because I could have quit, but I decided, no, I'm not going to let this beat me, and I'm going to get good. And I made sure that was the that was the last time I failed at anything, you know, certainly within, you know, in the grading side of obviously martial arts. I know Jackson went through a similar thing.
Well, you know, it's the same speech I've given to my own students when I became a teacher 100 times. You know, you're going to have to learn the difference between memorizing motions and memorizing moves and putting it in your soul. There comes a point where you realize you got to feel it, and you know you have to put your heart into it. And if you don't get that into them before they test for black belt, they're never going to get it. You have to make them understand that there's a difference between performing and actually living it and feeling it with your heart. And it's hard to explain to people, but I know you guys know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. If you could get it and bottle it, it'll be worth a fortune, wouldn't it?
It sure would. Yeah, it's hard to make some students understand. They can't even conceive it. And then there are others who go, wow, one day they just get it. It's like, wow, you got it. You know, you made it part of your soul. It's your Changshin, your spirit. All of a sudden, your spirit's in it. It's a big difference.
And as an instructor, it's great to see it, isn't it? It's great to see, you know, all of a sudden, you know, you turn up week in, week out, teaching your classes, teaching your patterns, teaching your sparring. You know, I've been, you know, instructor. Well, I say we all do teaching within the classes, but I've been a full-time instructor for 5-6 years. And you know that you're seeing these students day in, day out, and sometimes you look at them and think, God, these guys are never going to get it. And all of a sudden, you know, one day you look at them and think, wow, what happened to you? And I just love to know what those trigger points are for everybody, because it would be just amazing if you could, like you say, if you could get it and bottle it, because it is difficult to explain. I mean, we know it as black belts and we know it as long-time martial artists, but it's how you get it over, I think, over to your students, especially these days when we're living in a world of everything is, you know, instant gratification. You know, we want it and we want it now. We don't want to wait for it.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So Karen, just talk us through your career outside of martial arts and how your achievements in martial arts has helped support you in that very successful career.
Well, I always tell people I do 3 things really good. Some people, they have one thing they do good and they have one love. I call it one love, and they do that their entire life. I'm someone who's a lover of many things, and I enjoyed many different things, and I put my heart into it, my mind into it, and you know, I feel like I've achieved a certain amount of success in these things, but particularly these 3 things. One of them, I call them the 3 M's. One of them is martial arts. One of them is media, and one of them is ministry. Now, in media, by trade, I am a journalist. I was in broadcast news for over 20 years, 25 years as a reporter and meteorologist news anchor. And that was my trade for a long time. I started in the broadcasting business at age 15 at a local radio station, and it just built from there. And I did very well in that business. That's a tough business to be in. It's a very stressful business because it's deadline pressure and it's live. And every day when you get into, like, you know, news, my last contract was with Fox News in Denver, Colorado, which is why I'm still here. But there's a lot, especially in what we call major market TV, which means you have over 3 million people watching you. There's a lot of pressure to that. It's stupid pressure, don't get me wrong, but it's still pressure. You know, like you have to have a certain, you have to have a certain physical appearance that they want, that they like. You have to be able to be on your game. You have to be able to do a presentation, and you have to have everything pre-recorded and wrapped in time for that newscast to air. And it's I did it a long time, and I look back now, and actually often people ask me if I miss that, and absolutely not. I don't miss it at all. I did it for a long time. But, you know, martial arts helped me stay very disciplined and focused. It's really true what you can get out of it. The last 5-year contract I had with Fox News here in Denver, I actually got married and got pregnant right away. And I was, you know, having to go on live shots and get out of satellite trucks, very pregnant. And that's very hard to do. And then come back 8 weeks later and have to go do cover stories when I'm still breastfeeding. I mean, these are very hard challenges to be a human being and to be in a very superficial career. You know, and I just, you know, I know that my discipline and focus, there's something about a mind change that if you stick with it, you'll see it work. You know, it's kind of like when Winston Churchill said, listen, if you're going through hell, keep going, right? You kind of just know that you can do it, and you will keep doing it, and it won't last forever. So yeah, that's just one situation I can tell you. In that one career, there are many things I could tell you. We just don't have the time, you know, but that is one example.
So how did the crossover from that media go then into? 'Cause I know you've written lots of articles for martial arts magazines, and you know you've been involved in that side of it. How did it sort of cross over for you? I suppose the media and the martial arts probably came together probably to form that career, I'd imagine.
Yeah, they really did. I just put two of my passions and my loves together, and I was the first to do it. My first magazine write-up was in I think about 1992, under John Corcoran, rest in peace, in the CFW magazines. It was the inside stuff, inside Kung Fu, inside Taekwondo, blah, blah, blah. I got into all of those. John Corcoran was an editor. He was the only one on the scene at the time, a groundbreaker. And when I did a submission for him, he not only liked it, but he called me up and said, I'm going to give you your own column because you're so different, and I know you're going to do very well at it. I was shocked to hear that. I didn't know he thought that. So he gave me my first column in the early 90s, and it grew from there. And now I've either been a columnist in, or I've written for every major martial arts magazine in the world. And that spans over 20 years, you know, and I still continue to have my column in the magazines that are unfortunately still up and running now. Magazines are kind of a dying art now, unfortunately, but yeah, I'm still up and running, and I have 4 books out. So, you know, that's what I did. I was a journalist as you know, by trade, and all of my 4 books, they've done really well. 3 of them are in martial arts philosophy. 2 of them are available through Century Martial Arts. And the other one is a Simon & Schuster Macmillan book, which is a really big publishing. And then I have another one that's totally self-help that I self-publish. So yeah, I still do a lot of writing, guys. Still do a lot of it.
And so what's next? What's the next? Have you got any teasers for us? What's the next book that's going to come out?
No, I'm not writing. I'm not really working on a book right now. I'm in a very transitional stage myself in life, like a lot of people are.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if COVID had something to do with it, that you sit around and you think and go, okay, I need to get really focused. Am I on my path and on my journey like God wanted me to be, or what am I doing here? You know, I have these come to pop-up meetings on myself over the course of many years to make sure I'm doing what I feel like I'm doing at the particular time in my life. So I'm not doing any martial arts books at this time. I still do a lot of speaking engagements and seminars. And matter of fact, when I go to the Sport Karate Museum in a few weeks, I'm not just testing, I will be doing a seminar there. And I am a multi-ethnic girl. I have 14 documented nationalities.
Okay.
One of them that I heavily identify with is my Native American, my Cherokee nationality. And because I know that my Native American family has so many issues, my brothers and sisters, I do try to make a difference. And I will take donations when I do my seminars to try to help support going into tribal lands and teaching self-defense to the problem we're having with Indigenous women, which I'm sure you guys probably have no idea. The media doesn't cover it very well here, but you can Google it, and it's missing and murdered Indigenous women. And there's thousands of women, Indian women, that have gone missing in our country, thousands, and they don't know what happened to them. They're just literally falling off the face of the earth. So
there's something on Netflix, I think, isn't there? I think there's something on Netflix at the moment, actually.
Could be. I try to help. I go in tribal areas as a Native American woman, and I teach self-defense to Native American women. And I try to talk to them and inspire them and help them the best that I can. So that's something that I do. And, you know, and I raise money for that. I fund myself and my own expenses through my speaking engagements. Now, what I'm going to be doing in South Carolina, I'm actually switching up. I'm going to be wearing a kimono that is in my family for 100 to 200 years. It actually has the Kaimon Mokumon symbol on it of Oda Nobunaga, the House of Oda Nobunaga, who was a very well-known Edo period samurai, House of Samurai warriorship. So if you're into that stuff, you know exactly what I said. If you're not, you're like, what?
Yeah,
So
I'm just saying what to myself over here.
However, do you know what, Karen? It's really interesting. How and I'm sure it's going to resonate with a lot of our listeners. How can they find out a little bit more about it?
about my speaking engagements or about the Samurai Warrior class?
The Samurai Warrior class, I suppose,
Well,
for now, and then we'll find out about your speaking engagements
yeah.
towards the end, I think.
Honest to goodness, guys, I didn't even know what I had. I had heard through my family that I was a descendant of a samurai warrior. I don't speak Japanese. I don't write it, and I wanted to travel that and figure out what was going on. And for years, it was very, very difficult. Then I ran into a samurai sword expert, for lack of a better way to put it. Here in Denver, he was a Denver police officer, and he's deceased now, but he had a lot of knowledge from his training about samurai warriorship and the Seiwai Genji, which is the royal family of Japan that started all of the samurai warriorship stuff. I mean, he's the one that started the warrior clans, him and then the Genji family after him. But I told him I had a kimono. That's all I had in my family was the kimono. That's all that was left. And it was, I didn't want to bring it out. It's 100 to 200 years old, but he said, let me see it. I'll be able to help you with your lineage. So I bring it to him. He goes, oh my gosh. He looks at me. I mean, he's astounded. And I'm like, what is it? He goes, look at the symbol on your kimono. You're definitely samurai warrior class, and it's the House of Oda Nobunaga. So that's what started it all. Then I traced it back, and I found my ancestors who fought not only for the House of Oda Nobunaga, but under the Yamanaka clan on my grandfather's side. So it's two-time warriorship, which often happens because, you're not allowed to marry or in a subclass back then. You had to marry a class that was worthy of your lineage. It sounds terrible. It's not, but that's the history of it. And so my grandmother and my grandfather, that was an arranged marriage. I mean, and they're both deceased now, rest in peace. But even in modern time Japan, they were part of an arranged marriage, so that their lineage would continue to be very, very strong and represent royal in the House of Samurai. So that's how I found out. And then I started asking a lot of questions with the ancestors that I had that were still living on my mom's side. I'm like, in my mom who died a year ago, rest in peace. I asked her, I said, do you realize what I have here? And she goes, well, yeah. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? I don't know. I mean, being a martial artist, that means a lot to me, but my mom's like pretty cool about it, and even my grandmother was like, I had a conversation with her. I had my cousin as an interpreter in Japan. She goes, Karen, it's cool to know this stuff, but you got to remember, it's not where you come from. It's where you're going that really matters. And I want you to focus on that more than anything. And I knew exactly what she meant because my grandmother was a Christian, and she meant make sure you get to heaven. That's what really matters. So I understand what she's saying. Absolutely.
Okay.
So
sorry,
just
Joe.
Go on, Gavin.
I'll just say, just pulling you back a little bit. You mentioned that you're going through like a bit of a transitional stage, and I think all of us are going to look back at 2020. I think with and think really it was a pivotal time for so many people. I know certainly myself and Jackson and a lot of the people in the martial arts world, we've all really had to take a look at ourselves and look at our business structures and look at our martial arts journey and see how we can change and see how we can move forward and see how can we almost like a time of resetting, I suppose, isn't it? Have you found that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't really like it that much because I'm a deep thinker. I'm kind of a lone wolf, and I don't need a lot of extra noise around me to cheer me up if I'm down or to give me guidance. Or I don't really ask for anybody's help in that sense. I'm pretty tough that way, and I go internally, and I have my faith that I cling to. And so I don't like when I have a lot of time on my hands because it forces me to really dissect every aspect of my life. And sometimes I think you just need to roll with things.
Sure.
And sometimes you do the best you can, guys, and you just wait to see what happens next. Sometimes that's what you do. And that's what samurai warriors did. They go into battle, they never knew if they were going to live. Or Native Americans, their warriorship is incredible, their philosophy. You go into battle, you don't know if you're going to come home, but you do the best you can and you wait to see what happens next. And that is the mindset of a warrior, not to sit and, excuse me, feel sorry for yourself or to feel like you're trapped, but to realize that nothing lasts forever. And while you're here, you just sometimes have to resort to one little step at a time, even if it's in the dark. And then you just wait and you see what happens next. That's the way warriors operate.
Yeah, seize the moment. Seize the moment, isn't it?
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a bit like us with our podcast, Jackson. When we when we get guests on who we have no idea what their backstory is 2 minutes before we're about to go live.
Well, that's Gavin. That's just you not doing enough preparation, unfortunately. I'm not going to dig you out of that hole on this occasion.
Yeah, I think
actually, yeah. I think actually that's part of the enjoyment of our podcast. We've had so many guests on, Karen, that people have recommended to us to come on, such as yourself, within our martial arts community. And we know the name and we don't really know too much about them. But actually, I like listening. Although I'm asking the questions and Gavin's asking the questions, I'm loving just listening to your responses and finding out on the hoof, really, all about you. So, I think that's part of our strategy, really, not to know too much. If we come across too prepared, I don't think it comes across too well. I like to find out on the hoof what our guests have in their repertoire.
Just between you and me, I know people always shoot me questions, and I got to tell you, I say, okay, I never look at questions because I don't want I don't give canned answers.
Yeah,
I mean, I want them to be from my heart. So I'm a professional too. I can handle it, but I'm not someone who ever needs prep questions ever. And I know you guys sent me some. I got to tell you honestly, I didn't even look at them.
Good. They're just basic. Yeah, we only send out, to be fair, we only send those out to guests to give them a comforting feeling. We never normally ask them anyway, so that's perfect.
Yeah, so just going back to your just talking about your bio and your backstory. So I'm just reading your backstory, and it talks about your stunt career, or you dip your toe in a stunt career working with people like Van Damme and Cynthia Rothrock. How was that?
Well, I hated it. If you want to know the truth, it's not my thing, and I really don't ever want to do it again. I mean, no, really, I did a couple of movies, and I don't want to be a movie star. Stunt work is just godforsaken. It's a lot of work and no glory. And I did that one time. I did that in a Van Damme movie. I don't ever want to do it again. I mean, they literally dumped 3,000 gallons of water down the ramp of the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh and said, run. Don't worry, I ran. I mean, and then there was a time in my younger life, I felt like I would love to be able to maybe go into making action movies and that kind of thing, like Cynthia Rothrock did. And I was in a movie with her. I had a feature role. She was definitely the star. And she's also a Tang Soo Do practitioner, by the way. I see her, I hug her, I know she's my sister that way. But that's not my thing, guys. I don't care about movies. I don't want to be a movie star. I don't feel like that's my calling, but I'm glad I got to do it. I'm glad I did have a little bit of a career there for a while, but I'm good with what I'm doing now.
Did you go over to LA to shoot the stuff, or was it all done in
I did.
Yeah.
So, okay, sorry, but I did one movie. The stunt work was in Pittsburgh. I was called on to do that because I was in Pittsburgh. I flew out to Hollywood to do the feature role in the Cynthia Rothrock movie called Sworn to Justice. And then as far as movies, that was pretty much it right there. I didn't do any more after that. No, don't get me wrong. I mean, I get people, probably every month, someone will say something about a movie, we want you, blah, 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 2 to 3 offers. And you know what my response is in my head? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. But, half the time it doesn't even come to fruition. And, it's just, I don't have that passion. That's not what Karen's about. And I just don't want to go there. You know what I mean? So it's okay. Sure. It was cool though.
Yeah. And the thing is, our goals and our aspirations change as we get older as well, don't they? I mean, things that I wanted to do 30 years ago, 10 years ago, I'm totally not interested in doing it now. And I think we grow as individuals and we grow as martial artists, and our goals and our dreams become different, don't they?
Well, we evolve, and we should rightly so evolve. When you get younger, and especially coming out of the background I came out of, I was looking for someone to substantiate me as a human being. I'm not going to lie about that. I mean, it was just awful. I mean, I was so broken down as a young girl. I was a very broken girl. And, I found out that I was very talented. I'm very smart, and I take pretty good pictures. And, I'm like, well, I could use this for someone to make me feel special, for lack of a better way to put it. And that's the place I was at as a young girl. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's all I knew. That's what I had. But you grow up, you get this internal strength about you, and you realize, for me, at some point, you know what? I don't think God saved my life so that I would be here for people to think I'm special. Maybe I'm here to make a difference in other people's lives. And that switch came to me in the late 90s, or late 90s, maybe 2000-ish. That came to me then. That epiphany came to me that I'm here to try to make a difference, not to try to feel like I'm special. So I hope that makes sense.
No, most definitely. Karen, one question that we always make a point of asking our guests, given what you know now, and having what you've just said, I think it'll resonate. What advice would you give to a younger self?
Yeah, man, I actually think of that a lot. As soon as I say, okay, Karen, you just turned 18, you just graduated high school, what would you have a sit down with yourself about? The first thing I would say is, listen, you're a broken girl, and you're going to be needy. I want you to watch for the traps. Forget about guys, okay?
What?
Forget about falling in love and all that stuff. You seriously need to focus on other things first. Yeah, there are so many things I would change. But again, in the long run, because of my spiritual understanding of my faith, I realized God had a plan for me. And there are no mistakes, because once I decided I was going to walk with God in my life, that things were going to come out the way that He wanted them to, no matter what. So here I am. I did good. My head's on right, and I can't really complain about the mistakes I made. But yeah, there were some things that would have made my life so much easier had I known then what I know now. Absolutely.
Sure.
So to keep away from boys then, when you're 18, is that the advice that we can pass on?
Listen, seriously, I appreciate you asking this. This is for all the broken girls out there. I want you to know something. I am one. And broken girls who are smart and pretty and talented, they can still go right to the top, even if they're broken. And they often do. You have to realize that you need to believe in who you are without getting any help from any other dude that says, I love you, I want to marry you, come with me. You need to be able to have the strength on your own and not be dependent on that. Because I promise you that probably won't work out in a few years. And if somebody would have sat me down and told me that point blank, Karen, you're broken, you're going to be very attracted to love, and guys wanting to love on you because you're a pretty girl. They're going to want to take you and make you theirs and promise you all this stuff, and it's just bull crap. Listen, it's not going to even work out because you're young, and they're young. You just need to focus and know that you have you and you have your God, and you're going to make it, and don't be distracted by that. I would absolutely have taken that advice.
Is it fair to say?
You know what, Karen?
Sorry, Jackie. I was going to say, is it fair to say that you've got to learn to love yourself before someone else can love you, basically?
You do, and that's hard to do when you come out of a situation, a household where you don't have a foundation to stand on. When you don't have a correct foundation, it's hard to not want to seek someone just to love and protect you. It's very difficult. It takes a lifetime to figure it out. But absolutely, that's why I said every young girl should take martial arts, just for the aspect of understanding that you have the power within yourself to do these things. And so the other guy, you were going to say something. Which are you, Jackson or Gavin? Who am I talking to?
Jackson. I'm Jackson. I like to think I've got the nice deep voice. So what you've just said there totally resonates with me, because I've got 3 daughters, and they've trained with me all of their lives, and the foundation that martial arts has given them in terms of their confidence, in terms of their ability to draw on their own strength, has been phenomenal. So that really resonates with me, Karen.
Absolutely. And I'm not here to complain about my journey. It is what it is. It was the cards I was dealt. But when you don't have that good foundation, it isn't that you can't reach your goals and go all the way to the top. You can. It just takes longer, guys, because now you got to shovel out the broken foundation and find what foundation's going to work, because you never got it. And it wastes too much time. I know I did good. Listen, I know I did good. But the thing is, I probably could have done even more. I might be president of the United States right now.
Yeah, right.
If I had that foundation.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But again, you've still got time. There's still lots of time to continue achieving. And I think, you know, as you've already mentioned, you know, your calling, supporting other people, making other people as successful as you have been is probably an even more challenging journey to tackle, to be quite frank. And I think it's, you know, it deserves, it's a lot of courage to do that, and you should be applauded for that. So well done, you.
I appreciate that. And I don't want your applause, but I do want to tell you this. I was such a goal setter as a young girl, including being a master. Black belt wasn't good enough for me. I said, no, I want to be a master. I was such a goal setter. I wrote down everything I wanted to do at the age of 17, including being a martial arts master. And I wasn't even training at that age. By the time I reached the age of 40, guys, so now you know I'm at least 41. By the time I reached the age of 40, I had accomplished every single thing I put on that list. Everything. That's how focused I got with them. And that's cool. But now I'm like, okay, well, now what do I do? You know, well, now let's see, I did everything. Now I got to come up with a new list. And this list is not about me, because I've done everything I've ever wanted to do. Books, movies, magazines, radio, TV, public speaking, product lines, you name it. By the grace of God, I've achieved everything I set out to do a long, long time ago. And I'm not bragging. I just want to encourage these broken girls that I know is listening today. Guys, I just feel like there are broken girls and broken women listening today. And I want you to know that you can still achieve everything that you set out to do with focus, but you want to make sure that you have that spiritual reasoning to go with it, so you won't feel empty by the time you accomplish everything. And that's where my ministry comes into play, God. The other M is I really feel like I need to go make the difference in the lives of other people. And I am a woman of faith, and I believe in God. I believe in the power of Jesus Christ. I don't care if I'm old-fashioned. I don't care if it's politically correct. I don't care. This is what has saved my life. And I want to encourage women to find their spiritual journey. Thank you so much for letting me say that.
No problem at all. No, it's fantastic. Karen, you've been an absolute pleasure to talk to today. We really, really appreciate you taking the time out to come and speak to us on the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Before we go, have you one final question from yourself, Gavin?
Yeah, so just one question that we tried to ask all the guests as well, Karen, is I know Jackson's asked you what advice would you give to a younger self? But I suppose, we've heard a lot about you, and I suppose, is there one thing that you could maybe, I don't know, draw upon and say, give me that one thing that motivates you every day?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just have to continue to iterate on what I was just talking about. If you don't have spirit, we say in martial arts, body, mind, and spirit. It is a balanced triangle. It's a philosophy that's thousands of years old. We work on our bodies, obviously we work on our minds. I study, I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about in my field of expertise. But the spirit, people not only don't work on it, but nobody talks about it. And that's why they don't have balance in your life. You need to be a spiritual person if you want balance in your life. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much for asking that, guys.
No, that's cool. Now, listen, Karen, it's been great to have you on today. And thank you very much. And we're looking for, obviously, we'll tag you in when we get it aired.
All righty. Guys, thank you so much. God bless you. I hope to hear from you soon in the future.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
Take care. Keep safe.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, the Motivated Martial Artist podcast.
And don't forget also the Motivated Martial Artist Instagram page.
So head along for some extra content, interviews, and much more.
So until next week, it's bye from Jackson
and Gavin,
the Motivated Martial Artists.